would you like to know? Is this, you want to know about me or the company or what?
Well, a bit of everything, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
So, well, tell us a bit about yourself, I guess, to start with.
Well, I don't know. I've been motor mechanic apprentice in 1948 onwards, and worked in. That was just after the war, so we were making things and fixing things, and you couldn't buy a lot of stuff. So yeah, I worked in a place did my apprenticeship for 5 years, and then moved around in various other places, running workshops, and eventually run a workshop of my own in the city. Finally, in the last 25 years, I worked for this company, Terrain Tamer.
Cool.
But I got into rides probably, I suppose, through my brother. Was just at a four-wheel drive, and I got pretty excited about that. So it was four-wheel drives from probably, I don't know, 670 onwards there for me.
Wow, so a long time.
It seems a long while now, but it goes pretty quick.
So I hear that you're sort of known as Mr. Toyota.
Oh, yeah, they call me all sorts of things, sometimes behind my back. Yeah, you can get that. Well, in the early days, it was only really the Toyota dealers and two or three of us who moved out and concentrated on four-wheel drive.
Cool.
It was sort of not well accepted in the early days, but we thought it was good because there was quite a lot of work around, and it was quite easy to work on some of those vehicles. I mean, if you pick good models, they don't change for years, and I like the heavier trucks or the four-wheel drives. It's good.
Sure. So out of all the sort of vehicles that you've driven, Toyota is probably the favourite brand. What would be your favourite Toyota?
The earlier the better. I mean, you go right back. I don't know whether you've seen the DVD of the project vehicle that we developed from a 1960 model. That's good fun. I was sitting in it that day having lunch, as a matter of fact. But yeah, any of the earlier models which were virtually able to be worked on anywhere by any. Where some of the later ones, you lift the bonnet and you can't see where to start, and perhaps I'm a bit old-fashioned these days. They go well, the later ones, but the earlier ones I find that's what easy to work on and reliable, and you can sort of fix them on the side of the road, but that doesn't apply for the new ones.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree. I prefer older trucks to newer ones. Definitely way easier to work on.
Yeah, they are. You're right. Yeah.
I believe that you own an FJ45. Is that right?
Yeah, FJ45. Yeah, it's down in the. It's actually in the workshop at the moment. We restored it. There's a DVD about restoring it.
Yeah. With
you, and that was a lot of fun. And it's in good order. I take it out, and we went on a trip recently with it. Yeah, it's good. Good fun to drive. Right, real good.
And the video or the DVD that was made was with Terrain Tamer, right?
Yes. Yeah. Most of the stuff I do nowadays is with Terrain Tamer. Yeah, I don't get much time. They don't give me much time to do anything else.
Cracking the whip full time.
Yeah, I've got lots to do, and at home too. I've got a couple of four-wheel drives at home, and don't get out much these days like I used to.
Yeah.
I'm in the market as well, and a few other things, so I'm pretty busy.
So obviously enjoy four-wheel drives, but have you ever kept a record on how many you've built over the years?
Not really. I mean, I own too many vehicles at the moment. We built a couple of race cars. That was good fun, and learned an awful lot. Cost a lot of money. You can't buy that sort of knowledge.
Yeah.
You earn it late at night. Yeah, that was very successful. We raced them in off-road mainly. But built up a lot for people over the years, but there'll be hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds. Well, I think I'm on my 10th, so I'm probably nowhere near your skill level, but I'm learning.
Sometimes I think I don't know a great deal. Sometimes I think I've trained about 42 apprentices over the years.
Wow.
Sometimes we had 4 or 5 at a time, but you learn a lot about people.
Yeah.
As well as fixing cars. But yeah, I'm sort of like tinkering, like finding out things, like examining things, like finding out how things work and questioning, some of the old-fashioned held ideas.
Yeah, sure.
We've got to play around with that.
So Terrain Tamer, can you tell us a bit about that? What Terrain Tamer offer?
Well, Terrain Tamer interests me because we haven't got shareholders, so we sit around the office here and we sort of sort out our problems, make a phone call, fix it, and get on with work. It's good because any of us can sort of pick up a part and say, well, can we improve it? Why in the workshop are we going through this and that and this other bit? Can we make it better, stronger, longer lasting? And we've done many modifications to where people have laughed at us a bit and said, oh, well, you can't improve that, but we have improved it. And in our gearbox, for instance, there's 10 different improvements that we build into all our changeover gearboxes. We look at all sorts of things, why things break, why, even if they're used incorrectly, we want to see if we can improve them sometimes. So we've done it successfully, and that's why we get a good name about a quality product.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot about Terrain Tamer. Got family over in Australia who use Terrain Tamer probably more than they should, but they keep breaking their trucks, so they always turn to you guys for parts.
Well, the guys out there use them. I write a few articles for magazines, and some of the guys who use them, they use them pretty hard, and they expect a lot from them. And we don't sort of rubbish them and say, well, you shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have that. We try and improve the product if we can, and some of those people, for instance, are able to do some testing for us. We sell off to the mines department, and they are very strict in quality control, and big part of our customers.
Terrain Tamer are moving, or not moving, but obviously they're staying in Australia, but they're also becoming a bit more worldwide.
Yeah, I don't know. I think how many countries in the world are we around? About, I think we export about 60 different countries around the world.
Wow.
They also know about me for some reason. I'm not sure how, but what I translate into quite a lot of languages around the world, and it's a bit humorous because they can't translate slang or jokes. Problems are translating that, but it's good fun.
Yeah.
So you've made it out, I think. We must put some more money at this end, I think.
Well, I know Terrain Tamer is pretty big in Europe, and I think the name's growing in the UK as well. Although the UK is a bit further behind you guys in terms of four-wheel drives, but we're still all driving Land Rovers and think that they're proper four-wheel drives.
Why don't you invite me over there and we'll change them from Land Rovers to Land Cruisers, eh?
Yeah, I don't think that would be too hard, to be honest.
Oh, they've improved. Land Rovers have improved out of sight. They did have a bad name in the early days, but I've owned a couple of them, and but they didn't last as long as Toyota Land Cruisers in the early days. But these days, I think they've improved out of sight.
Yeah, I've made a move from Discoveries and Defenders to Cruisers and haven't really missed the Land Rover.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've spoken to a couple of people who think the same. Definitely interesting.
Sure.
So yeah, I've got an 80 series.
Okay.
On HCT. But if I was going to upgrade anything, now obviously I'm running the Terrain Tamer Pro Race shocks, the smart coils. But engine-wise or mechanical-wise, is there anything that I should look to upgrade?
No, I'd buy a 60 series. That'll upgrade. Nah, look, 80 series, 60 and 80. Like, people come up to me at the show and said, "Look, I've got $50,000 or $60,000 to spend on a car to go in Australia. What should I buy?" I tell them I buy a 60 or an 80 series.
Yeah.
$20,000 if you have to, but anybody in Australia or in Britain would be able to fix it because it's quite basic. After that, they get a little bit more involved.
Yeah.
Not sad, but as far as Joe Blow out in the 6 fixing it, pretty hard to fix some of the later ones. But you can't do much with the 80 series. I don't think you can do very much at all.
No.
Just don't go overboard with tyre size, and that's the main thing that people have put huge tyres on and then problems in the transmission. No, 80 series, great vehicle. Really
I just cancelled my order then for my 37-inch tyres.
Yeah, I tell people to put a rust prevention system on them. I think that's probably a good idea for any vehicle.
Okay.
We have rust problems over there, but we do here if you live within 5 kilometres of the shoreline. You know.
Yeah.
Otherwise, no, drive it like you hate it. Right.
Yeah, we get a lot of rust because I live in Wales, so we're around Snowdonia Mountains, and then obviously we've got the coastline as well. So rust is definitely a problem here.
Yeah, is it? Yeah, well, I think that some of the systems go, well, we have an ERPS system, electronic rust prevention system. And when you see the DVD about that, and I know the people are in it, it works right. It works real good.
Okay. And where can people find these DVDs?
Where do they find it?
Yeah.
If you send you one, I suppose. But you look up ERPS on the internet, and you'll come across their address and how to contact them.
Right. When was your sort of last adventure trip, and where was it?
Probably up at Ballarat, which is probably a bit past Ballarat, probably 100 miles, 100 k's, 140 k's away. We went away with a group that was actually planning to go half around Australia, and this was a shakedown sort of trip. So I took the FJ45, the 1960 model up there. They were amazed. They thought, "Oh, you better stay home instead of stay in. We'll go to the tracks." Right? I think we were all over the place. We went up places we shouldn't have gone, and we followed. We had a really good time with it. Yeah, so that was probably a couple of months ago now. It was sort of a shakedown trip for their big planned trip, variety batch thing that they have yearly. But I thoroughly enjoyed it, and they were amazed. The vehicle was right there the whole time.
Yeah, that's cool. So obviously I live in Wales, UK, Europe. What vehicle would you take around Europe if you were going to do an overland travel?
Well, it would depend on what parts available, I suppose, but I would think in this day and age, your 80 series would be ideal. You could get in touch with us anywhere in the world now with a special connection number, which we will mail to you or something later on, but yeah, we have a phone number that you get almost anywhere that will tell you where our dealers are, but I think as long as you've got supply spare parts, almost any vehicle.
Yeah.
There's some vehicles that we're not allowed to mention the name of, but we keep well away from. But if you look up the internet, you'll find out that they're well and truly named there, that their parts are hard to get or awkward. You buy a hose kit, but there's some hose missing, you buy the other hose and you've got 20 other bits. And just confused. You've got two lots of 6-figure, two lots of 5-figure numbers, and you've really got the part. You know?
Yeah.
That's important if you're going to break down to know the parts are available and easy to identify, because it's not always easy to identify on some vehicles. But yeah, parts, I think availability is probably denotes what vehicle you would take on the trip.
Yeah. Terrain Tamer obviously in Europe, but how many warehouses do you have in Europe? Is there one in each country, or is it a couple in each country? Or?
It will be pretty soon. Well, we don't want to get bigger, we want to get better.
Yeah.
But probably that all around Europe there will be agents or people who handle our product more and more. We open a place in Africa very soon, which within a couple of weeks. I had a look at it the other day, and it's brilliant. It's just really good and very professional, and it's not a backyard setup at all. And traveling in those areas, you know, so it's a matter of time, I guess. But we've been over there for quite a while now, and I think we're traveling in Africa and Germany as well.
Yeah.
So, you'll find it on the internet where our franchise dealers are. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put all the description in the description. I'll put a link to Terrain Tamer's website, and you can find out sort of where you all are. So Terrain Tamer essentially pride themselves on making stock products or stock parts bigger and better. And from what I've seen, they do. But
as well as stocking parts, the standard parts, we've probably got 60,000 line items in our shop here in our head
Uh-huh.
office. Huge it is. It's yeah, but when you look around, it's just unbelievable the amount of stuff we stock.
Yeah.
Most of it, we're getting a bit of stuff in Australia. We're the biggest Clio dealer in Australia at the moment, Clio bearings. So it's all Japanese bearings in our, and a lot of improved parts, even down to the point of gaskets. We pay more for gasket material than anybody else to try and get good quality, durable gaskets that last. And we've got to think about the temperatures, in other countries.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting sort of concept. We even sent some Australian dust over to one of our manufacturers the other day because they couldn't believe how fine our dust is and how it gets in places. Yeah, so, and I was with Toyota for many years, and it was very fascinating to see how the Japanese think about things and how careful they are about our opinion of them for a start, and also the fact that they want to fix any problems that are around. It's brilliant.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's probably why they last so long.
Yeah, well, it could be, I suppose. They are, I mean, they sing the family song, and if they had a problem, seriously, they'd probably come out of the window before they wanted us to worry about it. They used to come over here and take so many notes about very small things that we seem to amuse us a bit, but they were, no matter what was wrong, they wanted to fix it.
Yeah. So, yeah, with that in mind, what's the biggest or the best breakage you've seen?
I've seen prop shafts break, but I've never really experienced them in a big way. Probably people knocking CV joints around a bit, They use fully locked diffs on asphalt roads with the last one they had in last. People have got to understand there's not much driving a 35-inch wheel, and full horsepower. And so I sometimes now in warranty, I want to photograph front and back, front and side, to make sure that he's not doing rock climbing or whatever. We still got, so yeah, minor CV joints, I suppose. If they, it's right. Yeah, it's good. It's got the boss coming there. If they break something, I don't think there's a common thing that people are breaking. Sometimes a lot of people work on their own vehicles, and sometimes they shouldn't work on their own vehicles. They're not really qualified. And sometimes the breakage. I had one the other day where it's absolutely seized the front wheel bearing, and it's just red hot. And all he's got to do is feel it after he's adjusted. If it's a bit hot, he slackens it off. But it was melted, just melted. So I think I've written an article about what I believe people could look at and look at. And also we do a lot of training DVDs about things that people can do themselves. But this only pertains up to about your model, about the 80 series. After that, I think you're back to specialists.
Yeah.
Even we're worried about some of the specialists. There's people around Australia that are pretty good at doing things, by my opinion. But a lot of it's electronic, and people are replacing things as a troubleshooting thing, which is a very costly way of doing things. They'll put a loom on at $4,000 and they, oh, sorry, mate, that wasn't the trouble. Cough up to 4,000, I'll see what is the trouble. I mean, it'd be so simple, If in the very later vehicles, we would say put a new battery in for a start, even though you might not leave with a new battery, put that in, because these days, if there's a headlight out, fix that before you look for coughing and spluttering.
Yeah, sure.
We had $5,000 on a vehicle, and it was a stoplight globe that was faulty. That's written up in the technical magazine.
Wow.
So in the early days, it was very obvious you had a noise or a rattle or a clunk. You looked at it and you sort of got it fixed. But these days, it can be rather awkward to troubleshoot.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
We haven't got an across the board problem that's keeping me awake, really. CV joints, I'm looking at that at the moment, only because we want to keep people happy about it. And we don't want to say, well, stiff luck, mate, you've broken a CV joint. But there's a reason. We're getting to the stage now where we can actually determine what caused it. In most cases, it's just hard abuse use. And we tell people. I'm at the stage now of putting an instruction sheet in and say, well, look, guys, it's a huge big wheel you're trying to turn. Well, this is a universal joint. It is a weak part, I suppose, in in the transmission, but if we strengthen that, what else is going to go?
Yeah, because it's sort of the weakest link, and then finding the next weakest link if you strengthen that part.
It's an education process, because when you talk to these guys, or if you're away with them on a trip, they understand that really they are expecting a whole lot of their vehicle, whether it be submarining it in 4 foot of water and skiting about it and taking photographs and showing their mates, but there's a cost involved.
Yeah.
So education is a big part of what I do now. I look at a thing and talk to people and get, sort of see if we can educate them to tone down a bit what they're doing. You know very well they're jumping and showing how high they jump, and then going through water, how deep it is. What are they talking about? Tank or friend? There you go.
Bro. All right, last question. This is probably the most important. You've already touched on Land Rovers, but would you ever actually drive one full time?
I own one. I have owned them full time, but there's some the later ones that the army have. I think they are pretty good. But it gets back to the problem of people who work on them and spare parts availability.
Yeah.
If I'm in Australia, I've got to take a Toyota or an Nissan maybe, but Toyota. If I wanted even a back axle for something, half the time they may not be available in Northern Territory.
Yeah.
So I've really got to stick with whatever parts are available. I mean, if people want a car here, I tell them to buy whatever the taxis use. So you can go and buy down to Woolworths or Coles and buy a fan belt.
Yeah.
You don't have to get from one from America or something. So I think availability, whatever the vehicle is, use it. But if something goes wrong, I think that's the time to ask the questions before you buy the vehicle.
Which is why I'm kind of glad that you guys are making a move into the UK market, because for Toyotas, well, for let's say older Toyotas, proper four-wheel drive parts just aren't readily available as sort of I'd hoped for.
Yeah, so we experience a lot of. We've opened a couple of places in New Guinea, Fiji as well, but we learn a lot from those countries too, because of what you think that they perhaps break axles over there, but they don't seem to break them here. And when you look at their roads and you think, well, goodness me, what are we looking at here, So we've got to be a bit careful with criminal opinion, warranty and that sort of thing. And see when you have a look at the conditions they operate on and the lack of service, because half the time it's pretty poor country areas, the lack of service is horrendous. I mean, a guy wrote to me the other day and said, what's wrong? I only changed the oil every 50,000 kilometres. I mean, in the back of my deer for 50,000, it's liquid, but it's not lubricant.
Yeah.
It's talking about 10,000, 15,000 to change oil. But the same thing's applying to new cars now, where they're saying, you can go 30,000 without changing the oil. What right? That's nonsense. It's not going to last.
Get it every 10. It's kind of what I try and say, or 5 with the Toyota.
Yeah, people say they only drive it quietly and slowly and take the kids to school. That's severe service. That's severe service. In common rail diesels, you can't do that short running, cold running, short trips in a common rail diesel. It won't last. And that's severe service. Everybody thinks it's quiet service, but it ain't. It's severe service. That's according to Allan Gray, but it's written because of what people tell me. Part of my job is to visit other garages, and there's a lot of them, and I've visited over 600 at the moment. They tell me lots of things, and I check that with other garages, and so I can come to an opinion, not my opinion, but what the trader's telling me, and then I put it in booklet form and pass it on to other people.
Yeah.
You can't. Some of the later common rail diesels, I don't know whether you have any diesels over there at all, but here almost every vehicle now is common rail. Doing a good job, but they need some talking to, some advice, some indication about what they're doing may be wrong.
Yeah, sure.
But I enjoy doing that and passing on information that I get from other garages.
Yeah.
So there you go. You ever going to get over here?
I've been over. I spent a year over there travelling around in a Discovery 1. Got laughed at everywhere I went.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, people do have a bad opinion of some vehicles over here.
I travelled the whole of WA in a Discovery One on 500 Ks.
Yeah.
Just serviced it before I left. Had no idea what I was getting into, and just
Yeah.
went. Broke down pretty much every day. Just essentially turned me into a mechanic that kind of knew what he was doing with the basics.
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. Have you read any of our books, the Len Beadle or any of those guys who opened up the middle of Australia? They did it all on Land Rovers.
Did they? Yeah. No, I've not read them. I find all that quite interesting though, so I will definitely.
Gun barrel highway, you know, Len sighted up where he was going through a shotgun and marked the tree and then blazed through there in his lap. Great stories, yeah.
No, that's cool.
All the people now use, you know, mines and police and all use trail cruisers.
Yeah. So when I was up in Port Hedland, travelling to and from Broome, the only cars you saw up there were essentially a Toyota.
They use the mines are pretty strict. I mean, they want a measurement on the disc pads every second day. They can go through a set of disc pads in a week. They're very, very strict, hard on parts. They're ideal for us. We can get things tested, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have an alternator that lasts eight weeks or so. They're doing pretty well. It's very hard, and then that's ideal for us.
Yeah.
You get them to do testing.
No, that sounds perfect.
Well, yeah, one of these days I'll interview you when you've made it.
One day.
In your workshop.
Well, I'll come over and we'll have a chat.
Yeah, we'll talk to you. We'll sit you near somewhere. No worries. All right.
No worries, Alan. Thanks. Good to see you.
Okay.
Glad to see you.
Bye. All the best.